I'm Reverend Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. Where are our prophets now? Where are those messages God chooses to communicate divine revelation through? In the past, the Creator has sent prophets like Abraham, Siddhartha, Jesus, Muhammad, and many more. Maybe our higher power has switched tactics since we reinterpret God's words as soon as the Creator's prophets leave us. Could it be that Spirit talks to each one of us individually and we haven't learned to listen? On Words of the Prophets, our modern prophets show us how to find the internal prophet that is the I Am, and we discuss the application of spiritual principles in all aspects of our lives. Love and light, everybody. I'm Reverend Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. Today, my guest is, as always, welcome to have her, and great to have her, is Chris Grissom, who is the founder and head of the Church of the Sanctuary of Light, the Nizhoni School for Global Consciousness. Did I say that right this time?
Yes, Nizhoni. You got it.
And the Light Institute at Galisteo.
That's
Welcome back again and again and again.
I love playing with you here.
I
Thank
love
you,
having
Reverend
you
Phil.
here. So today's prophetic topic is We Will Always Survive, which is not the Gloria Gaynor song that happened back in the late 70s. This comes from Chris's book, which we've talked about a number of times. It's called The Evolution of God, which, I've said it and I'll keep saying it, one of the most important books you're ever going to read. We're flashing contact information for Chris. Just contact her, get the book. Anyway, so this topic is on page 252, and the complete paragraph reads as follows. Perhaps the greatest gift of reincarnation is its potential to free us from the bondage of primordial survival instinct that prevents us from expanding our horizons beyond the plea to be saved from death. It's better than this. The experience of many births and deaths is the key to overcoming the fear of death, the end of existence. When we truly know that consciousness is not entrapped in body, that we will always survive, that we will reach out with the curiosity and sense of exploration necessary to open new worlds. So, if you haven't figured it out by now, we're going to talk about reincarnation, and we're going to drift into a little karma too.
Okay, well, they're connected.
Definitely are. Can't do one without the other. Well, you can, but it's kind of like the yin without the yang.
Yeah.
Again, this is all, I'm going to be quoting, we've got about 8 separate thoughts that we've extracted from the latter part of Chris's book, The Evolution of God. And we're going to talk about each one of them in some depth. These are gems. These are precious. But just because you're hearing this here, do not think you know the book. You've got to read this book. This is the 3rd or 4th show we've did on part of, if not all of the book.
Yes.
Love this book. So
thank you.
Anyway, thank you. You wrote it. I get to talk about it. This is great. So I'm gonna start with reading a quote, tell you the page numbers, and then we're gonna start talking about it because each one of them is just like I said, it's a precious gem. So the first quote is from page 239 and overlaps into page 240. One of the obstacles to our enlightenment of the cosmos, and we're going to talk, that's a beautiful phrase, is our confusion of linearity and the constriction of time on a continuum. It is almost impossible for us to comprehend that past lives are going on now, that time pulses and is spatial, and it is not simply a linear thread. Oh, beautiful stuff here. Let's talk about that first thing that really jumped out at me. Our enlightenment of the cosmos. So we are here to enlighten the cosmos as opposed to the cosmos enlightening us.
Yes, we are.
Let's explain that.
Well, I think it's very important in terms of the ideas about incarnation, because most religions and most people who wield the word incarnation, reincarnation, are thinking that we have to keep coming again until we become perfect, and then we're received back into the cosmos. So the concept that comes up in this book, The Evolution of God, is that we're the ones that create the evolution for the cosmos, for the divine source, so that the things that you feel and think and experience in this lifetime and in the many lifetimes, incarnations of your soul, ripple out into the cosmos and become the energies that guide what some people think, oh, it's a chaotic thing. It's not chaotic at all. There's something that attracts it in this direction or that direction. So evolution will eternally continue. And when we have third-dimensional experiences through our lifetimes, we are actually feeding the cosmos and directing the energies that allow for planets, that allow for civilizations, that allow for the God force to evolve.
So this would feed the concept or the theory that says we were created to be companions to God, that God knew enough when God created everything that to be by itself was not a desirable place to be.
Yes.
So,
however,
go ahead.
However, when we speak like that, we're really thinking that God is a male human-like person, and that we're creating that image so that God wouldn't be lonely. And I think that that's a very, very small perspective, because the whales, the dolphins, the trees, the stars, they're all a part of divine creation.
Of course.
Of course. I know that you feel that way. But I want to make that clear so that there is no God up there going, I'm lonely, I better make somebody in my form. I think that there is this echo of infinite potential and form. And in fact, when we incarnate, as some religions feel, we don't always do it in human form. You know, so it's simply consciousness that comes again and again and takes on a form, whether it's a tree, whether it's a human, whether it's a galactic being, you know, and expresses and learns from that. And through that embodiment, the cosmos is changed and enlightened.
The law of diversity, so to speak, and
Absolutely.
not necessarily male or female. I mean,
Exactly.
that's our own limitations that we're placing on our own definitions that we're limited in defining.
Exactly.
But I mean, going back to what you just said, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Hinduism is the only religion that really recognizes the incarnation into other species.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that this is true.
I mean, I think most of the religions don't. I mean, the Abrahamic religions really would rather
That's right.
not deal with.
Because they are based very closely on the concept that God is in human form, and that we were created in that form to have that dance, that relationship. Whereas for the Hindus, there are many gods, and that's the crux of the difference, because they feel that there is Ganesh, you know, the elephant god of abundance, and there is a feminine god, and there are many, many, many gods that touch on the various points of evolution of humanity or of life on our planet. And so they see, for example, the sacred cow, they see it as sacred and differently than we do.
Yeah, I mean, the cow or animals are sacred because they recognize the fact that they can come back as an animal.
Yes.
So the basic, I mean, as I understand Hinduism, you know, real Hindus. What's an unreal Hindu? But
Yeah.
one of the teachings of Hinduism is really vegetarianism, that you
That's
don't
right.
eat meat because of the reincarnation cycle,
That's
and
right.
that the only time you eat it if you find it dead along the side of the road, because then it's a gift from the gods.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
so yeah, I mean, so it's tied into the whole culture and
Yes.
it's really interwoven
Although
nicely.
I think so they allow that concept that you could come back as an elephant, for example, who are very wise and connected to a divine source that can specifically answer needs that you humans have. So there's that possibility. But I think in general, they do feel that it's more about human incarnation again and again and again. And I differ with that. So let me jump in here and say that I differ with all of these religions in terms of incarnation.
Yeah.
Because most of them have the concept that the law of incarnation is you must keep incarnating until you're perfect, until you can be accepted back into the cosmic divinity. My higher self, my divine voice, says that it isn't really that way at all. That in fact, as we were just talking about, the divine source necessitates form, incarnation of bodies, embodiment, in order to evolve itself. So it's not about our lacks that cause us to incarnate, that karma is some kind of negative thing. It's about the opportunity and the power of choice to embody again and again, to expand the potential of divine energy, so that there is eternally evolution, and that we don't always come in because you were a bad guy last time, but rather because in the holographic perspective, each time that you come in, you bring potential that can enlarge the potential of the cosmos. And that is really exciting when you think about that, that you could come in not because you're lacking, but because you have a connection to the divine. You are the vehicle of the divine, and that's the purpose of your embodiment. And so we would hope that as we incarnate, we become more aware, more conscious, even if we don't remember our other lifetimes, our other incarnations, but we have an inkling of it. That's why I say that we have spiritual DNA and emotional DNA and galactic DNA and all of these genetic constructs that will feed us and allow us to go in this direction or in that direction, which will support our evolution.
So let's, before we progress much further, let's define karma.
All right. I would define it a little bit differently again than many people, in that we know that karma is simply the law of cause and effect, action and reaction. So that means whatever you think, whatever you do, any motion that you create ripples out and necessitates some kind of response or reaction to that. That does not mean that karma is only negative. And Christian belief, and in fact every religion, has this concept that of cause and effect, which is stated sometimes as in whatever you put back comes back sevenfold or tenfold to you. And so make it be good, and then it'll come back in a positive way. But it's not, if you're bad, you're going to be punished, or if you're good, you're going to get patted on the head. It doesn't work like that, because time doesn't work like that.
We'll get to time in a second. Let's go back on karma for a second.
Yes.
What if I said we create karma every time we have put self or ego ahead of spirit?
I would say even if you put spirit ahead of self, you would be creating karma, because it's simply the law of cause and effect, action and reaction. Thereby meaning that if you put spirit first, and of course I would say to everyone, don't separate them. Don't separate spirit from life. They're interconnected completely. And that's something that we need to learn, how it is that we can bring the divine in through us, through our vehicle, and walk on the earth carrying that rather than creating a separation. You know? But so if you put spirit as something that was important to you, that's the way you lived your life, that would create a karma which would ripple out and begin to magnetize to you energies that were related to that spiritual experience.
So if we extended that out, cause and effect, so if I am creating spiritual karma, so to speak, it may take me out of physical form and into another form for the next level, or whatever those levels might be, to have that experience.
Well, you may be for a moment expanded, for example, ecstasy, which is a divine energy. At that moment, the sense of self kind of combines or dissolves and merges with cosmic energy. You're still using your vehicle, but you're not thinking about survival. You're not thinking, how am I going to win the argument? You're thinking about the oneness. You're experiencing the oneness. And so what I would say about that is that you have an experience like that. For a moment, you're not thinking about tomorrow. You're not thinking about what's going to happen. You simply have a spiritual experience. Because you've had that experience, it will continue to move inside you. It will radiate out from you, and people will look at you and they'll say, what's happening to you?
So
Because
that would
they'll
be in the concept, and then two things. Let's get into a little bit of Buddhism because two
Right.
things are coming out of this. First off, the concept, especially in Buddhism, but it's also in Hinduism, of getting off the wheel, so to speak, getting off the cycle. And the other thing was the concept of coming back as a teacher, which is a bodhisattva.
Yes.
So
Well, let's start with the first one
Yes.
because that is what we've
Get
really
off the
been
wheel.
talking about. I feel that that's a limited perception. That's a perception that has held for thousands and thousands of years, that coming into body is a separation from the divine. I wrote that in one of my books called The Healing of Emotion. That at that moment of conception, we separate from the divine energy. And so we begin to have an ego self, a body self. And it creates a false kind of conclusion, which is that, again, you want to get done with this. You don't want to be in body. If you're a spiritual person, you want to get out of body. That's why for thousands of years, spiritually oriented people sat in the caves, didn't touch their sexuality, didn't touch their relationships, just said, I'm only going to focus on God. And of course, they missed God while they were doing it. And I think the mandate is very different at this time. So I don't think that there will ever be such a thing as getting off the wheel of karma. What will happen is that the wheel of karma evolves as our consciousness evolves, so that we feel the power of choice. We feel the power of the bodhisattva to be the teacher, to embrace the connecting of divine invisible energies with visible energies. We will always incarnate. I am so sure of that, because it's not a punishment. It's a gift to the divine source. It must evolve, and it can only evolve if some kind of consciousness comes into embodiment to amplify choice. So we will always have a wheel of karma, but that karma will become lighter and lighter and more conscious and more evolved and more enlightened, so that we come to a place where we feel what it's like to carry the divine energy into this world, and this world will become heaven.
So let me paraphrase that and see if we can come up with a statement that sounds reasonably not understandable. I understand what you're saying, but I want to simplify for people who watching, because
yes.
not everybody is into the deeper understandings. That we will evolve from getting lessons to being the demonstrator, the teacher.
Yes. But I would always say the teacher, who the student, who the teacher. In other words, from each moment, from the breath of a flower, from the word of a human, from each gesture, we grow and evolve. So we're never just, I am now the teacher and I have nothing else to learn. All beings, and let me throw this one in there, Buddha, Jesus the Christ, perhaps Muhammad, all of these beings that have come down through history and been templates, Mary Magdalene, templates of divine energy, they are still connected to the third dimension because they're not finished. There is no such thing as finishing. All there is a wider and wider arc of potential. And that's why sometimes you might incarnate as a human, a male or a female, and sometimes you might incarnate in another galaxy.
Or another part of this
Or
solar
another part
system.
of this one, which we're about to discover now. It's very exciting.
Well, that's something, down the road, you and I talk about doing a show on Edgar Cayce, and he's really big on the different planetary sojourns, but not going to do that in this show. Before we even go on to the second quote, I'm not finished with this quote yet. By the way, for those of you just tuned in, if you do not recognize Chris, shame on you.
Hello.
That means you're not watching this show. The book is Evolution of God. Must read. And they should be flashing information about contact, and you can order it straight through the Light Institute out at Galisteo. If they are not, or if you can't catch it, contact me and I'll be happy to put you in touch. But I want to read this on. Past lives are going on now. Let's talk about that, because
Yes,
that's a
thank you.
great concept.
Yes, it is. And the easiest way to talk about that is actually from this lifetime, taking an example from this lifetime. You are your great-grandfather's legacy. He lives on because he has passed through his experiences into the psychogenetic encoding of you. emotional characteristics, experiences that he had, thought forms about religion and the divine energy. So he lives through you. And in that way, our emotional DNA brings from the astral imprints from many lifetimes. Many lifetimes. And that is why you walk into a place and you say, I love this town, or I love this state, or I love this person, because there's a familiarity to it.
You know you've been there.
You've been there.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
you have. I'm tickled because science is trying to show that deja vu, for example, which is just that flash of, I remember this looks familiar, that it's only that you saw it a second ago and then your brain replays it. I think that's very quaint because I've had, and I think this is a good moment, if I might say, that I have been doing incarnational work for 53 years. 53 years I've been doing incarnational work. So I've seen a lot about our lifetimes.
Uh-huh.
And, yeah. And so I see how, for example, perhaps you're having an experience in this lifetime that maybe it's a drug experience or some kind of negative or scary experience. If you were to open the veil and say, let's look in a lifetime that's related to it, you would find the source of what you're experiencing now. And that's the beauty of it. So your past lives are not past. They are like any genetic material. They are living through you. And because you're not conscious of them, you just replay them. In the same way that I think most of you who are a little bit into your 40s or 50s would say that, heaven forbid you're becoming a bit like your parents. You know, we rebel and say, I'm different. And then suddenly we get older and we discover that we have the same mannerisms or we agree with our parents we never thought we would. And that's because that cycle of connection is imprinted in you, and then you begin to play it out. So there is no such thing as past lives. We don't call them past, even though perhaps your consciousness would be aware of them maybe at the time of Jesus or 5,000 years ago or 100 years ago. You have a repertoire. Whether you think it's coming from your family, your blood relatives, or you're thinking you actually had those lifetimes, makes no difference, because those spin points, those points of reference, will enact themselves upon you now.
I'm going to read the next quote and tie it back in because I want to tie it into this because it's fascinating. So what we've just been talking about is on pages 239 and 240. This one's purely on 240. Incarnations ripple out through the cause and effect laws of karma, which means that individual events or lifetimes are simply points of reference within the matrix of the third dimension that bleed in and out of unmanifest realities. Mm-hmm. So let me try to throw this out at you, and if I interpret this, which is maybe just my own interpretation, which is really my own belief, time, like you said in the first one, it is not a linear thread.
Right.
So as I am living here and now, I am also living in other past lives, whether they be the Stone Age, whether they be someplace down the road in the future, any place in between. These lives are not happening on a linear progression. They're happening overlapping concurrently, and I can jump in and out of any life I want to as a spirit soul, and just to have those experiences that that are necessary.
Well, I would refine that a little bit by saying that you might not jump back into them, but the experience you had in them will be with you. It will be piggybacking on you. And so it will influence you now. So it's not dead. It's not a past that you closed the door and it's finished. No, it's still moving with you. But now, instead of your physical aspect of it, it will be a little bit more subtle. It will be a whisper to you. It'll be something that causes you to go in this direction or to feel that way. It's a crystallization, is what I would call it. That crystallization will stay embedded in you until you turn around and become conscious of it, and most importantly of all, release it. Release it from the cellular memory of this body. So even if it's a positive, powerful lifetime, you want to release it, and that's a whole story we can get into a moment. But so there is that echo. Maybe we should call it an echo. There's an echo from your past that's influencing you now and actually causing your future. So there's an arc of time.
And is not there an echo from my present going back into my past as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that echo
It
from
keeps-
your present, the echo from your present actually changes the power of the past. That's what's so exciting about it. We're
Yeah.
not stuck being the victim.
Because it's overlapped as opposed to just somewhere down the road.
That's right.
So
The
let's,
Chinese would say everything is connected to everything, yin and yang. You
yeah,
know.
of course.
There's that, again, that circular or arc of time, arc of connection. Yes.
So let's take another concept, that I can have more than one experience at a time in this time frame.
Yes, but I would qualify that and say there are not other Reverend Phils running around.
But there are parts of my soul that could split off and be somebody else on another part of the planet.
Parts of your soul can piggyback your soul friends on the planet in order to evolve in a faster way. Absolutely. Now, there is that thing called simultaneous lifetimes. And what that is that we have a simultaneous life on another planet, in another galaxy. A part of your soul is vibrating at a different rate. So in other words, there aren't two of you wandering around. There's only one of you wandering around.
Often imitated but never duplicated.
That's it. That's it.
But let's back up on that for a second. I mean, how do you feel about the concept of twin souls?
Oh, I hate to smash people's bubbles there. But you know, again, I would say about that humans create the construct of relationship in a very limited patterning. And that pattern is, I want to be like God, I want to be like you, there's something missing. I would say that construct of twin souls comes because in Atlantis we split the male and female. So the male is always looking for its female half, the female is always looking for its male half, and that has caused us to inherit that energy. Where is my partner? Where is my other half?
Well, okay, see, that would be, to me, that what they would call soulmates.
Yes. What I would say, but twin souls, you know, again, in the same way that there's only one palm print, one fingerprint like yours, that we have soul families.
Yeah.
I wrote about this in one of my books. We have all of these soul relationships that travel again and again together. But the idea of twinning really is because we haven't been willing to feel ourselves individuated and yet connected. For example, in talking about soulmates, my own inner voice, my own higher self says that you have 5,000 possible soulmates.
Okay.
On the planet at this time who can be magnetized to you. And what's the purpose of a soulmate? To help you evolve.
Exactly.
Not to make you feel safe, not to say, phew, I'm done, I'll let my partner do it here. But no, but to dance the dance of the evolution of the soul with you.
Well, I think the lack of understanding creates a lot of confusion.
Yes.
You know, one of the things I talk about, won't get into who I talk about it with, but we reach agreements with these soul families,
That's
these
right.
soul groups,
Contracts
these
and
soul
vows.
friends
Yes.
to come back with us.
Yes.
So there's two things that come out of that. One is that, contrary to that romantic kind of definition of karma, I don't owe karma to anybody. It's a
That's right.
self-contained. So we work together. It doesn't mean we owe each other. We just work together as a
That's
good
right.
team.
But the part of owing, you certainly don't owe anybody. But what's very interesting is that we do. And I found this out by asking people questions without thinking I knew the answer. Hundreds and thousands of people over 53 years. For example, typically when we're looking at a lifetime, at the moment of death, I'll say, was there any contract or vow that you made with this person? And typically it's, I'll get you next time, or we'll always love each other, or we're going to be together forever, or I'll give you the payback there. Those contracts and vows do cause us to magnetize to ourselves people, and that's why, as we were talking about before, You meet somebody in the first 30 to 60 seconds, you know whether they're going to be your lover or your enemy or your teacher or your
I
friend.
don't think that's the case all the time. I think that's part of the problem, because we are so starved for love and so romanticize it that when I make an arrangement with somebody in spirit,
Right.
you know, how do I recognize them in body when I'm really disconnected from spirit? Is that vibration?
That's
So
right.
it's like a little like, you know, buoy in the middle of the ocean going ding, ding, ding to you.
That's right.
But people, like, you know, they got all this romanticized stuff going on. Well, we're going to be lovers. And it's like, wait a second. No, this is just somebody's here to teach you and you're here to teach
Right.
them.
But you
That's-
have a history with them.
Exactly.
You have a history. We're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
You have a history with them, and so you recognize them, and maybe you were lovers, star-crossed lovers in another lifetime, and so you want to replay it this time, which is not to your, this is to your detriment. And that's why there's so many broken hearts that go on, because we think the other guy's going to do it.
We don't stop and ask, what's the lesson here?
Yeah,
Oh, this
exactly.
is romance, baby. Let's go get married. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, because we don't understand the spirit and we don't understand
That's
how
right.
it works, so we think the signal is something
Yes.
more than what it really is, which is like, okay, we got some work to do together.
That's right.
We may or may not be
And
romantic.
a pattern I see a lot,
Yes.
Reverend Phil, is that what'll happen is around the mid-40s, when there is a certain kind of astrological influence that wants to get rid of the old and bring in the new, people will start having affairs, or they'll suddenly think they found their soulmate, and they'll divorce, or they'll separate out from their lives, and they'll think, this is the one. With this one, I'm going to become a divine being, you know. And I would say almost 100% of the time, within a year, they're no longer with that person. So what I would say is, that's your soul friend, all right, and they came along to help you get out of a relationship that wasn't working. But now they're going to show you what of that is yours.
Exactly. It'll teach you maybe you should have been back in that relationship.
Finishing it off.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what you're talking about, that when I first got clean in 12-step, and
Yes.
the second step is about sanity, and my sponsor at the time said, you know, you're a little bit too, you have no points of reference about sanity. Let's talk about insanity. And he was right.
Well, yeah.
But one of the definitions he gave me is what you're talking about is trying to fix what's broken inside of me with something outside of me.
That's right.
You know,
That's
so
right.
I'm going to, you know, there was never enough drugs, there was never enough sex,
Right.
there was never enough money, there was
Exactly.
never enough anything to fix me. The only thing that's going to ever fix me is sitting down, praying, meditating, acknowledging
Exactly.
the spirit within.
That's how I got into this work, because I was in psychology for many years, and I discovered that really it's not about fixing what's broken. It's about discovering the part of you that's not broken, that is connected.
Yes.
There's nobody out there saying, you did drugs, therefore out with you, to hell with you. No, that
No.
isn't true. There is always a divine energy of love and embracing, because you are the cosmos. And once you start to allow that in, the guilt falls away, the boogeymen, the possessions that come in from the drugs, it all starts to fall away, and suddenly you feel like, I'm okay.
There's grace.
There's grace. It's
Always.
my favorite word. My favorite word, grace.
So
Absolutely.
just to totally jump off topic, why isn't the next book you're writing an autobiography?
If I actually told my autobiography, I don't know. I think I'm not ready.
I think
always
you
tell
have to, like you
Cafu-
just said to me. I think you have to. But that's karmic, and let's not go there.
No, that's not.
Okay, how about the third quote? Also on page 240. In the same way that our childhood set the perimeters for who we think we are in the present, the imprints of the past relive themselves through repetition until we have mastered or become illuminated through those experiences, irrespective of the number of embodiments. They
Yes.
are repeated not because we are held to unfinished themes or bound by punishment for past deeds, but because negative energies are very strong magnetically and attract again and again similar constructs. Like attracts like.
Yes. Yes. And so if we have guilt, if we have imprints, and we do, and again, one of the most brilliant things my higher self ever taught me was whenever you're beating yourself up, you know, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or I'm this way, I'm always, that word always is dangerous. I'm always putting my foot in my mouth. You want to stop for a moment and say, is this attribute, is this mine? It's not blaming another person, but it's realizing that you are living the lives of your grandparents, of their religious teachings, of the people that you wander around with in your life now. And that it's so important to begin to say, is this really who I am? And not just like the tiger chasing its tail, going around and around. That's what they call the wheel of karma, in a misunderstanding of it, I think. Going around and repeating, because the emotional body doesn't have time and space. So it just has whatever stimulates it. So if you're stimulated by guilt, or you're stimulated by self-punishment, you know, self-hatred, then you're going to magnetize to you again and again and again relationships and experiences that allow your emotional body to say, see, I told you so. You always do that. And you can't evolve that way. So we have to become aware that we have to see what is our own incarnation. What is that individuation, and how do we want to wield it? And what do we want to get rid of, or what do we want to amplify within ourselves?
Well, going back to the statement I had made earlier, and I'm going to drop in on the Casey thing.
Yes.
Casey, when he talked about the law of karma and the law of reincarnation, also talked about the law of grace.
That's right.
And what he was implying is that the law of karma is to lead us to a deeper understanding of us as a spiritual being.
Which will always offer us grace.
Exactly.
Yes.
And if we can get to that place where we can demonstrate that spiritual being, we've already proven that we've gotten the lesson, and we therefore do not have to have the experience.
That's right. And what happens is you don't magnetize the
exactly,
experience.
because that will bring in
That's right.
the other stuff, and we're getting ready to teach others or show others, demonstrate to others what it is we've learned.
Because we can walk our talk.
Exactly.
An example that I use a lot in talking about incarnational experiences and why it's important to clear away good ones and not so good ones is, let's imagine that you had a lifetime as a guru or a great spiritual being, and that you were able to teach all kinds of people things, but you really felt that there was good and evil, and so your heart was closed. You didn't really have compassion. You said, this is the law, this is how it is, and live it or not. And so you come back in, and people ask me this all the time, why am I here in this lifetime such a regular schmo? I'm no great teacher, I'm no great being. And I always say, oh, but you are. And the reason that you're here now is to build on the information, the knowledge that you had, so that the wisdom of cosmic law comes through you with compassion and the profound energy of love. And that's why we come again and again, not because we're lacking something, but we're growing into something. I think I mentioned in one of those quotes, I don't know, growing into the evolution of the soul.
Actually, we're having so much fun. The time is actually running past us. We got
we
time
haven't
yet.
started.
But I want to go to this other. I'm going to jump a bunch of quotes ahead.
Okay.
So we're going to jump from page 240 to page 245. If one were to listen to these play-acting vignettes from the perspective of reincarnation, one would have a glimpse into the spiritual repertoire of a soul residing within the body of the child. Children are fully developed souls.
Exactly.
Can you elaborate? 'Cause
Yes,
that is
I
such
can.
a beautiful concept. I think
Yes.
people see the body as not being evolved, and they cannot see how the soul in there has fully developed already.
That's right. So first I would say that we have found at the Light Institute that at about 3 or 4 years old, we usually start at 4, allowing a child to clear the parents by looking at lifetimes they've had with their parent. And so what happens is that at about 4 years old, they start having imaginary friends, and if you listen to them, you will hear their incarnations. And it's very important to listen. And you could say, well, am I there? Did you know me then? Oh, yeah, you were my child. Ah, and how did you die? And did we get along? And you could help a child to release so many points of karma that you're actually giving each other as soul friends that are not necessary by releasing those lifetimes. So if we saw, and I think it's easy to really see in a child, that brightness, that purity, that willingness to forgive, to love, to just go on with it, then it embraces and teaches us. What happens at about 7 is that we close that psychic door and we begin to try to see ourselves in relationship to the outside world rather than the inside world.
Oh, because nobody there to guide us. So we're forced to go outward instead of inward.
Yes.
Yeah.
No one is saying, applauding you and saying, tell me what you feel about that. What do you know about that? And you would be shocked at what children can tell you.
They don't want to be shocked.
All right, you can be inspired.
Well, parents would, because of the culture, and I mean, especially again, you know, I don't want to keep sounding like I'm beating up on them, but the Abrahamic traditions do not teach us that this stuff is okay.
That's right.
You know, so if I'm talking about past lives in this culture, well, now, you know, especially in Santa Fe, it's probably okay, but, you know, if you go to some other places, it's like demonic possession.
You know what I usually talk to people about when they have those kinds of thought forms is several points of reference. First of all, most of the Abrahamic traditions actually embraced incarnation several thousands of years ago, until they realized that people would say, well, I'll pay my debts in the next lifetime. So then they voted it out as a concept or as something that they felt was true.
Well, that happened, I've got it here.
551
no, I think it was earlier
like.
than that, actually. I got so many notes I can't even find them. But
it was at the...
Yeah, 553, the Council of Constantinople.
That's right.
It was voted out by 3-2.
That's right,
margin.
3-2.
Yes.
But here's what I would say. Do you really feel that being a man or being a woman, that would be what the divine or God force would give you to learn? You have to learn from both sides. So you have to incarnate at least twice. You have to feel what is it like to hold the divine as a woman and hold the divine as a man, and how you bring those together. And so it doesn't have to threaten heaven. The reason that they got rid of it, again...
Well, I mean, back up just for a second. I mean, how can we possibly threaten heaven?
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, these concepts of a finite mind trying to describe something that's beyond description, yeah,
That's right. Because people feel that heaven is a place, you know, and that it's what you do in this lifetime that gets you in or gets you out. And again, those concepts were bred in the darkness of age-old consciousness, not in the lightness of today.
And it was basically, I mean, Jesus' teachings, we're here to develop heaven on earth. We're not here to, I mean, I don't want to get into this again because I can get very, I don't want to, opinionated? No. But the facts and the mythology do not jive.
That's
Let's
right.
put it that way.
It just doesn't make sense. If you really look at these energies and you look at it from a historical perspective, you will see that there are gigantic holes in what is taught about God and life. And it makes much more sense to feel the evolution. After all, we all do agree that there is some evolution from blue-green algae through mankind. And so why is it so hard to feel that there's an evolution, an eternal evolution of the soul? Of course there is. And in that, we don't stop at heaven. And then that's it. You get to go to heaven and that's it. And you only have 30 years or 5 years or 50 years to be worthy of heaven. That's against the very teachings that have been placed in the Bible, the Quran, all of these great books.
I mean, Emanuel Swedenborg had a beautiful definition. He said, heaven is a place without limitations.
That's right.
And hell is a place with limitations.
Perfectly said.
And he doesn't say what dimension it's in or where you're going to find it. It's right here on earth. You're putting limitations, you're living in hell.
Yes, and so our purpose is to support people in the evolution of their soul. And in doing that, we have to expand their sense of self. And that's why I do incarnational work, is that when you have seen many deaths and many lifetimes, and you've seen that you've been the fool and the killer and the divine and the blissful, And all of those are part of your repertoire. It changes the choices you make in this lifetime. That's why I do it.
That's the eighth quote I have. You know what? What I want to do is I want to do a quick announcement. So let's go back. I'll read that quote, and we just could spend a little bit more time on what we've just been talking about. Wow. I got a big announcement here, so bear with me. Next week, my guest is Shu Burji. You folks who've been watching, she's been on a couple, 3 times with me. She is a teacher of the Vedanta, and we've done a number of different shows, one on the Bhagavad Gita and such. I'm not sure what next week's topic is. We're kicking it around. It may be the Vedas, or there may be the Upanishads, or it may be chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita, or just maybe it might be the Divine Mother and the whole concept of that. But she's going to be here next week on the show. We're going to, record a show on Monday, and it'll air 4 days next week. But she's also doing some workshops in town. So let me give you a quick announcement on those. Friday, November 12th at 8 o'clock, Journey to Self-Discovery, Gems from the Upanishads, which is a 1-hour talk, and then questions and answer at St. John's College, Great Hall, in the Peterson Student Center. That's 1160 Camino Cruz Blanca. Then on Saturday, November 13th, from 1 to 4 o'clock, Evoking the Divine Mother, Chants for Healing, a workshop with Shu Burji at Yoga Source, which is on 901 West San Mateo. And this one has a registration fee. We don't talk about money here, so I'll give you a number to call. All the rest of these things are free. Then Monday to Wednesday, November 15th to 17th, from 7 to 8:30, there's morning prayer, which is Pratah Smaran. Forget it, I can't pronounce these words. That they didn't have these kind of languages when I was born in the Bronx. It's a hymn by Sri Adi Sankara, and that's at the Vedic Chant Center, 901 San Mateo Road. It's upstairs from the Yoga Source. Then Thursday and Friday, November 18th to 19th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m., What You Invoke, You Become, which is what we've been talking about, based on the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, which is also at the Vedic Center. So for registration for the Divine Mother Chant Workshop or any other information, call Ariana Marcello at 570-0743 or email her at marchello@gmail.com. And if you need those, contact me. I'll be happy to give them to you. Just a couple more quick announcements. One is, I think we resolved our problem about, I keep asking you folks to somebody come forward and do a Casey show. Chris and I are going to do a Casey show probably towards the end of January, so no longer that, but this is public access. You are the public. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, what shows you'd like me to look at, what topics you'd like me to discuss, commentary on topics that we've had, any questions you have about anything that's been said here. Be happy to communicate with you. So my information has been flashing on the screen, and it will roll at the end as well. Last but not least, I am a spiritual counselor. Kind of the things you hear me talking about day in and day out on the show is how do I use spirit to heal. I believe without spirit we really do not heal. So I mix some therapeutic with a whole lot of spiritual and guide you through the process that shows you how to heal spiritually. My fees are non-existent. I work on a donation basis. So if you have any interest, you want to talk about some problems, you think I might be able to help you, feel free to contact me. We can talk on the phone. We can come into my office and we could see if we can do some work together. Whew. That's my announcements. So Perfect. We're back here with Chris. We got about 8 minutes left. What you've been hearing here is all part of a fantastic, spectacular book, The Evolution of God. And you can get it probably at the Ark, probably at Borders. You can get it from the Light Institute at Galisteo by contacting the contact information and just telling them, hey, I want to get a copy of this book. They'll happy to, hook you up with it, take your money for it, and it's worth much more than you're going to pay for it. So you want to just read it. It's fantastic. It is spectacular.
Thank you.
So I'm going to, another quote from this book what we were talking about, page 247 and 248. What happens to purgatory and hell within the potential of reincarnation? Does the spirit burn in hell for some designated allotment of suffering and then reincarnate again? In effect, this is the law of karma that opens the way through all impossible, hopeless, and painful realities to continue the inevitable evolution of the soul. No, we do not burn in hell forever. The dastardly deeds of one lifetime cannot stop the pulse of infinity and are eventually rebalanced by their opposites of compassion and goodness in other incarnations. Why do we fear the possibility of reincarnation? The entire gamut of extremes resides within us because of our many lifetimes and awaits only our choice. What do we want to be?
Yes.
So let's talk about choice.
My favorite.
Go
yes.
for it.
You know, we so often feel ourselves the victims. I can't do it because of this and this. I would if I could, but instead of realizing that when we move deeply inside, we can hear that choice. Often we don't know what we want. We just want to be comforted, we want to survive. And so I think it's important to go back to that concept that survival comes because the primordial body doesn't realize that we incarnate again and again, that we have infinite opportunities to express our best, our divine self. And there's nothing really, really outside that. So choice is really another way of talking about consciousness. That when we're conscious, we can look through the hologram and say, this benefits me and it benefits the good of the whole, as Spock would say. And this does not. And to realize that there is nothing that stops us from expressing, using our body, using our incarnation to express who it is that we want to be, what it is that we want.
So what we're basically talking about is I come into any incarnation. I have, as one of my teachers used to call it, a blueprint for this particular life.
Yes.
That blueprint is subject to my free will.
Absolutely. In other words, when you come in, your blueprint might say, I need to learn compassion, or I need to be visible, or I need to wield power with grace. And then how you learn that lesson is very much tethered to the experiences of the incarnations that you've had and your conclusions. What are your conclusions about those experiences? That's what influences the choices that you make.
Or I could exercise free will and override all of that to the benefit or the detriment of that plan.
Yes, and I don't know if there is any detriment because there's no end goal. It's
Okay.
all going around the spiral of evolution. Absolutely.
Well, when I say detriment, I'm talking about basically not having to repeat that lesson over again and going on to the next lesson.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, they all overlap, you know, and that's why it's holographic. We suddenly have an aha, we learn something, and then everything connected to it, the future, the past, changes because of it. And so basically it comes down to that illumination, that awareness that allows us to expand our sense of self and our purpose in life.
And that choice we get is, in its most, to me, its most basic duality, is do I listen to that voice inside my heart, whatever you want to call it, that says, you know, we're all one, let's demonstrate that.
Yes.
Or do I listen to that voice inside my head that says, get it for yourself and the heck with everybody else?
That's the survival voice and the voice of great fear. And so what dissolves our fear is beginning to have perception of our connectedness to the divine, to the cosmos, and also to the goodness inside us. What I've found, and I have worked with prisoners and people who have definitely lived terrible experiences in this lifetime, is that when they go back to other lifetimes or they go back to their childhood in this lifetime, they have no frame of reference or of don't be afraid, You will survive. They don't have that frame of reference. They have the reference that says, survive above all. But see, when we see the evolution of the soul through the lens of many, many lifetimes, many incarnations, then the fear that drives that kind of individuated survival dissolves. And that's what we need for evolution at this time. You will always survive. More than that, you will always evolve. You will get rid of these clothes, and we could talk for hours about the experiences of incarnation, what those lifetimes are telling us. We will get rid of the body, but the consciousness will move on and take on others. And that's how we evolve through those lessons.
So then, because we're running rapidly out of time, the purpose of this show then is to open up to the viewer the possibility that they have not explored, that they're more than just this body and they will live forever and there's nothing to fear.
There is nothing to fear.
To embrace it, whatever is put in front of you has been brought to you by you because
for some purpose that will be good for you, not bad for you.
And more will be revealed in another plane of existence.
Yes. And again, when you experience, not in your heads, but when you experience deaths and births and deaths and births, the imprints that you have of that fear completely dissolve because it expands your repertoire. And that's what I love about it. And let us come to a time on this planet when we lay our bodies down with grace. We don't get cancer, we don't get diseases, we don't get run over. We don't do it in violence, but we do it in grace. And that's something that's one of the goals that I wish to extend out to the world. We can die with grace.
Not even only dying with grace, but walking with some dignity and grace.
That's right.
Yes. Don't have to wait till you die to find grace. Let's do it right now.
No. Right now will be just fine.
And I think that's the perfect closing thought. Chris, thank you so much for being here again. And like I said, Chris will be back at the end of January. Not to watch, you should watch the shows in between, but she'll be back. We'll talk about Edgar Cayce. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And that is the message. You are one with everything. You are one with the divine. You are one with the person you are looking at right now, the person you're sitting with right now. Treat them like you'd wanted to treat yourself, not like you've been treated, but the love, the beauty, the grace, the dignity that you want. Treat yourself that way and treat others that way. And watch yourself grow and watch the world around you grow. You are one. Just go out there and just, let it out. You don't have to let it in. It's in there. Let it out. So until next week, love and light to you all. Blessings to you all. And we'll be talking to you next week. Bye.
Blessed we are.
I'm Reverend Phil, and I've been your host for Words of the Prophets. Thank you for tuning in. Please join me again next week, same time, same channel, for more Words of the Prophets.